Tonight, we travel back nearly 2,000 years to the world of ancient Rome, a world of stone streets and towering amphitheaters, of roaring crowds and flickering torchlight. But instead of witnessing the thunder of battle in the arena, we will explore something quieter, something slower. A single ordinary day in the life of a gladiator. The men who fought in Rome's arenas lived lives that were both harsh and strangely routine. Behind the spectacle seen by thousands of spectators stood long days of training, simple meals, tired conversations, and moments of quiet reflection. So tonight, as you settle in and allow your breathing to slow, imagine the ancient city resting beneath the fading stars of early morning. The streets are silent, the air is cool, and inside a stone training school just outside the busy heart of the city, a gladiator begins to wake. Our story is told from his perspective, in his own calm recollection of a typical day. And so now, as Rome sleeps beneath the fading night sky, we begin. Before the sun rises, the day begins long before the sun appears above the rooftops of Rome. I wake slowly in the darkness, the way I have learned to do after many years in the gladiator school. The body grows accustomed to rising early, and even before the guards come to open the doors, my eyes drift open to the quiet stillness of the barracks. The room is large but plain, built from thick stone blocks that hold the cool air of the night. Along both sides of the chamber, rows of wooden beds stand close together, each one covered with rough blankets and straw mattresses that rustle softly when a man shifts in his sleep. The faint smell of dust and worn leather hangs in the air, mixed with the familiar scent of sweat that never truly leaves a place where fighters live and train. Above us, small windows sit high in the walls, crossed by iron bars. Through one of them, I can see the faint glow of the last stars slowly fading from the sky. Dawn is not far away. Around me, most of the other men are still asleep. Some breathe deeply, their chests rising and falling with the heavy rhythm of exhausted bodies. Others turn restlessly on their beds, perhaps dreaming of the arena or of places far away from here. In a gladiator school, sleep often comes quickly after a long day of training, but it is not always peaceful. My name is Marcus Cassianus. At least, that was the name given to me at birth. Here inside the ludus, the gladiator school, names matter less than the style in which a man fights. To the trainers and the lanista, I am known simply as Cassianus the Thracian, trained to fight with a curved sword and small shield, quick on my feet, and taught to strike from unexpected angles. It has been 3 years since I first entered these walls. 3 years since the day I was purchased and brought here to begin the life of a gladiator. In that time, I have learned many things. I have learned the weight of armor under the hot Italian sun. I have learned the sound of a crowd roaring from thousands of seats in the amphitheater. And perhaps most importantly, I have learned the rhythm of ordinary days, the quiet routine that fills the long spaces between the violence of the arena. Those quiet days are what truly make up the life of a gladiator. As I sit up slowly on my bed, the straw beneath me shifting softly, I stretch my shoulders and feel the familiar stiffness in my arms. Yesterday's training still lingers in the muscles. It always does. The body is constantly being shaped, strengthened, hardened by repetition. Across the room, another man is already awake. Diadoros, a Greek fighter who sleeps on the bed opposite mine, nods when he sees me rise. Neither of us speaks at first. In the dim light before dawn, words seem unnecessary. Instead, we simply sit quietly for a moment, listening to the soft breathing of the room around us. Somewhere outside the barracks, a guard's footsteps echo faintly along the stone corridor. The day is beginning. A few minutes later, the heavy wooden door swings open with a dull creak. Torchlight spills across the floor, casting long shadows along the walls. One of the guards steps inside, his sandals scraping lightly against the stone. Up, he calls out in a voice that is firm but not unkind. "Morning." The room stirs almost immediately. Blankets are pushed aside. Men sit up, rubbing their eyes or stretching sore limbs. The quiet stillness of sleep slowly gives way to the low murmurs of waking voices. There is no rush, but there is also no delay. Discipline is one of the first things a gladiator learns. Within minutes we are standing, pulling on simple tunics and tying leather belts around our waists. The stone floor feels cool beneath bare feet as we file out into the corridor and begin moving toward the courtyard. Outside, the sky has begun to lighten. The first pale glow of morning spreads across the horizon beyond the high walls of the training school. The day has begun. The courtyard of the ludus is wide and open to the sky, surrounded by high stone walls that separate us from the busy world beyond. In the early morning light, the training posts stand in long rows across the dirt ground, each one deeply scarred by years of practice strikes. Even from a distance, they look worn and battered, silent witnesses to the endless hours of preparation that take place here. But before training begins, we eat at a long wooden table has been set near the shaded side of the courtyard. Servants move quietly among the benches, placing clay bowls and cups before the men as we sit down together. The meal is simple, as it always is. Thick barley porridge fills the bowls, steaming slightly in the cool morning air, and baskets of coarse bread sit within easy reach. Gladiators are often called horderii, which means barley men. The name comes from our diet, which relies heavily on barley and beans. It may not sound impressive, but the food is filling and nourishing. The physicians who oversee our health believe that this kind of diet builds strong bodies and provides the energy needed for long hours of training. That I take a spoonful of the porridge and eat slowly. The taste is plain but comforting in its own way. Around me, the courtyard fills with the quiet sounds of men eating, the scrape of wooden spoons against clay bowls, and the low murmur of conversation. Publius, who sits beside me, tears a piece of bread and dips it into his bowl. "Another hot day coming," he says after glancing toward the brightening sky. Publius once served as a soldier in the Roman army before debts and poor choices led him here. Despite everything, he still carries himself like a disciplined veteran, sitting straight and speaking with calm confidence. Diodorus sits across from us, stirring his porridge slowly. "If the heat does not exhaust us," he replies with a faint smile, "the trainers will." A few nearby men chuckle quietly. Humor is common among gladiators, perhaps more than outsiders might expect. When men live so close to danger, laughter becomes a way to ease the tension that might otherwise follow them everywhere. At the far side of the courtyard, the lanista enters. Lucius Vero is a tall man with sharp eyes and a neatly trimmed beard. His cloak hangs neatly across his shoulders, and his posture carries the quiet authority of someone who owns everything within these walls. And that includes us. He walks slowly between the tables, observing each man with careful attention. A gladiator school is both a training ground and a business. Healthy, well-trained fighters bring fame and profit to their owner. Injured or undisciplined men bring nothing but trouble. Vero pauses briefly near our table, watching as we eat. "Finish your meal," he says calmly. "Training begins soon." With that, he continues across the courtyard, leaving us to our breakfast. Above the walls, the sun finally begins to rise, spreading warm golden light across the training ground. Another day in the life of a gladiator is about to unfold. After breakfast, the courtyard gradually fills with the quiet sounds of preparation. The bowls and cups are cleared away by servants, and the benches are pushed back against the stone wall. One by one, the men stand and stretch their arms and shoulders, loosening muscles that have only just begun to wake. The sun is now climbing steadily above the walls of the ludus, casting long golden light across the packed dirt training ground. The air still carries the coolness of early morning, though everyone knows it will not last long. Before midday, the heat will settle heavily over the courtyard, turning the ground warm beneath our feet and the armor hot against our skin. Our trainer, a broad-shouldered former gladiator named Gaius, steps into the center of the yard. The deep scar across his cheek catches the sunlight as he surveys the rows of men gathering around the wooden training posts. These posts, called poly, are our silent opponents. Each one stands firmly planted in the ground, worn smooth in places where countless swords have struck over the years. To an outsider, they might look like simple wooden beams, but to us they represent discipline, repetition, and survival. Gaius lifts his staff slightly. "Rudis," he says. The word is simple, but everyone understands the instruction. Along the side of the courtyard rests a rack of wooden swords used for training. Each one is heavier than a real blade, designed to strengthen the arms of the fighters who wield them. I step forward and take one of the practice swords into my hand. The weight is familiar now, almost comforting in its solidity. The wood is smooth from use, darkened by sweat and time. The men spread out across the courtyard, each standing before his assigned training post. When everyone is in place, Gaius begins the drills. The first strikes come slowly. I raise the wooden sword, step forward, and bring it down against the post with controlled force. The sound echoes sharply across the yard. Around me, dozens of other swords strike their posts in steady rhythm. The air fills with the repeated thuds of wood meeting wood, a sound that grows almost hypnotic as the drills continue. Strike, step, guard, strike again. For a Thracian gladiator like myself, speed and agility are essential. Our curved swords are meant for quick cuts rather than heavy blows. During training, I focus on movement, imagining an opponent shifting in front of me, raising his shield, stepping to the side. The post never moves, of course, but the mind learns to create the illusion of a fight. The drills continue for what feels like hours. Sweat begins to gather along my shoulders and back, and dust rises in faint clouds beneath our shifting feet. The sun climbs higher, warming the courtyard until the cool air of morning slowly fades. From time to time, Gaius walks between the rows, watching closely. When a man's stance becomes careless or his shield drops too low, the trainer's staff taps sharply against the ground beside him. "Guard higher," Gaius says calmly. The correction is immediate. I in the arena. A moment of carelessness can end a life. Training is meant to erase those moments. Gradually, the rhythm of the drill settles into something almost peaceful. The body moves without hesitation, repeating patterns learned through countless hours of practice. Breath slows, muscles work steadily. The mind focuses on nothing except the movement of the sword. In these quiet stretches of training, it is almost possible to forget the arena entirely. Almost. Eventually, Gaius lowers his staff. "Rest," he says. The word spreads relief through the courtyard. One by one, the men step away from their posts, setting down the heavy wooden swords and stretching tired arms. Large clay jars filled with water stand beneath the shade of the courtyard wall. I walk toward them with the others, dipping a cup into the cool water and drinking deeply. The water tastes faintly of clay, but it refreshes the throat and cools the body after the long drills. Nearby stands the school physician, a thin older man named Aurelius, who moves quietly among the fighters. His role is an important one. Gladiators represent a significant investment for the lanista, and their health must be carefully maintained. Aurelius carries a small wooden box filled with herbs, oils, and bandages. As the men rest, he examines small cuts and bruises, applying simple treatments that help prevent infection and keep injuries from worsening. When he reaches me, he gestures toward my forearm. The skin there bears a thin line where an old training wound has reopened slightly during the drills. He studies it closely before applying a mixture of crushed herbs and vinegar. "This will keep it clean," he says in a quiet voice. I nod in thanks. Gladiators are expected to endure pain without complaint, but the physician understands that small wounds can grow dangerous if ignored. His presence ensures that the school continues to function smoothly. Across the courtyard, Two younger fighters practice grappling techniques under the watchful eye of another trainer. Even during rest, some men continue improving their skills. Every advantage matters, because when the day of a real fight arrives, preparation is often the only difference between survival and death. By the time the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, training finally comes to an end. The courtyard, which had been filled with movement and noise throughout the morning, gradually grows quiet once more that we return to the barracks, stepping into the cool shade of the stone building. The sudden relief from the heat feels welcome after hours beneath the sun. Inside, the room is dim and peaceful. Some of the men lie down immediately, letting exhaustion pull them into sleep. Others sit quietly on their beds, adjusting straps on their armor or sharpening the edges of their weapons with careful patience. That I choose a place near one of the small windows, where a faint breeze slips through the iron bars. The air carries distant sounds from the city beyond the walls. Rome is never truly silent. From somewhere far away come the rumbling wheels of carts moving along the streets. Voices drift faintly through the air, merchants calling out to customers in the markets. Occasionally, the bark of a dog or the distant clang of metal echoes between buildings. It is strange to listen to the life of the city while sitting inside these walls. The people outside think of gladiators only in the moments they see us in the arena. They see the spectacle, the clash of weapons, the dramatic victories and defeats. Few imagine the quiet hours that make up most of our lives. Diodorus sits down beside me, leaning back against the stone wall. For a while, neither of us speaks. Finally, he glances toward me. "You fought last month," he says calmly. Did I nod? "Yes." He studies my expression. "You defeated the Gaul." The memory returns slowly, the bright sand of the arena floor, the roar of thousands of spectators rising like thunder around the amphitheater. The moment when the fight reached its final breathless seconds. "Yes," I say quietly. Diodorus nods once. "Do you think about it often?" I consider the question for a moment. "Only when someone reminds me." He chuckles softly. "A wise habit." For a while we sit quietly, listening to the distant sounds of Rome. Then Diodorus speaks again. "One day," he says thoughtfully, "I will win the wooden sword. The rudis, freedom. A gladiator who survives many fights and earns the favor of the crowd may be granted this simple wooden sword as a symbol that his service is complete. It is a rare honor, and few men live long enough to receive it, but every gladiator dreams of it, even those who pretend not to." As the quiet hours of midday begin to fade, the barracks slowly fills again with the small sounds of movement. Some of the men who had been sleeping begin to stir, stretching their arms or rubbing their eyes as the warmth of the afternoon settles across the stone walls. Outside the narrow window, the bright sunlight has softened slightly, though the air still carries the heavy warmth of the Roman day. A faint breeze moves through the courtyard beyond the barracks, carrying with it the dry scent of dust and sun-warmed earth. Eventually, the voice of one of the guards echoes down the corridor, back to the yard. The command is simple, and no one argues with it. One by one we stand, adjusting our belts and stepping out into the hallway. The sandals of dozens of men scrape softly against the stone floor as we move together toward the courtyard. When we step outside, the light feels warmer than before. The long shadows of the morning have shortened, and the courtyard glows in the steady brightness of the afternoon sun. The training posts still stand where we left them earlier, silent and patient, as though waiting for our return. But this time the practice will be different. During the afternoon sessions, we train not only with wooden swords, but also with shields and helmets. These drills are slower, more deliberate. They focus on the careful coordination between movement, defense, and timing. I collect my shield from the rack along the wall. The curved surface is worn smooth along its edges, bearing countless marks from past training sessions. As I fasten the leather straps around my arm, the familiar weight settles comfortably into place. Across the courtyard, The trainers begin arranging the men into pairs. This kind of practice requires a partner. Diadoros joins me near the center of the yard. His helmet rests under his arm. Its narrow eye slits designed to protect his face during combat. Though the armor may appear intimidating to spectators in the arena, here in the courtyard it is simply another tool of practice. We take our positions facing one another. Gaius walks slowly between the pairs, observing carefully. Slow strikes, he instructs. Controlled movement. These drills are not meant to injure. Instead, they teach rhythm, distance, and awareness. When two fighters move carefully together, each one learns to anticipate the other's actions. I raise the wooden sword. Diadoros lifts his shield. The first strike comes gently, the blade tapping against the rim of his shield before I step back again. He responds with a slow movement of his own, guiding his practice sword toward my shoulder while I shift my shield to block. The sounds of practice fill the courtyard once more. Not the heavy thuds of the morning drills, but the lighter rhythm of controlled contact. Shields brush against wood. Sandals scrape softly in the dust. Trainers offer occasional corrections in calm voices. Despite the constant motion, the atmosphere remains strangely peaceful. In moments like these, the Gladiator school feels less like a place of violence and more like a disciplined academy where men study the art of movement. But everyone here understands that the lessons we practice will one day be tested before thousands of watching eyes. As the afternoon slowly settles over the Gladiator school, the intense energy of training fades into a quieter, more careful rhythm. The sun now hangs lower in the sky, casting a warm golden light across the courtyard walls. The ground beneath our feet, which earlier in the day had been churned by the movement of dozens of fighters, now lies still and dusty. This part of the day is devoted to preparation. For a gladiator, armor is more than decoration for the arena. It is protection, identity, and survival. Every fighter in the school carries a different set of equipment depending on his style. Some wear large helmets and heavy shields, while others fight more lightly armored, relying on speed and agility. I sit on a wooden bench near the barracks doorway and begin examining my own equipment piece by piece. My shield rests across my knees, its curved surface scarred with countless scratches from training sessions and previous fights. I run my hand along its rim, feeling the worn edges where blades have struck again and again. The leather straps that secure the shield to my arm must be tightened carefully. If one were to break in the arena, the shield might slip at the worst possible moment. So I thread the leather slowly through its iron rings, pulling the strap firm and testing it with a steady tug. Nearby, the other men work with similar focus. Publius sits cross-legged in the dust, sharpening his sword with slow, patient strokes of a whetstone. The faint scraping sound of steel against stone repeats steadily, almost like the quiet rhythm of breathing. Diadoros carefully polishes the metal surface of his helmet. His armor is heavier than mine, with narrow eye slits that protect his face during combat. The curved bronze catches the fading sunlight, reflecting a warm glow across his hands as he works. Occasionally, one of the trainers walks among us, inspecting the equipment with practiced eyes. They say little, but their presence reminds us that every detail matters in the arena. Victory often depends not only on strength or courage, but also on preparation. The courtyard grows peaceful as the evening approaches. The earlier sounds of clashing practice swords have been replaced by softer noises, leather straps tightening, metal gently clinking, whetstones sliding across blades. Above the courtyard walls, birds glide lazily through the warm air. For a moment, the Gladiator school feels almost calm. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, the light in the courtyard changes. The bright heat of the afternoon softens into long shadows that stretch across the ground. The air cools slightly, bringing a welcome relief after the long hours of work. It is during this quieter time of day that news sometimes arrives. The heavy gate at the far end of the courtyard opens briefly, and a messenger steps inside. His cloak bears the mark of the magistrates who oversee the public games in the city. Everyone notices. Even though the messenger speaks only to the lanista near the entrance, the presence of such a visitor immediately draws the attention of every gladiator in the courtyard. The messenger produces a sealed scroll and hands it to Lucius Vero, the master of the school. The lanista breaks the wax seal and reads the message slowly, his expression calm and unreadable. The courtyard remains silent. No one speaks. Yet every man understands what such messages usually mean. The games are coming. The amphitheater will soon open its gates once more, and fighters from the schools across the city will be called to perform before the crowds. Vero finishes reading and folds the parchment carefully. "You will be informed," he says simply. That is all. Yet those few words carry weight. For gladiators, the arena is both purpose and danger. It is where our training is tested, where victories bring fame, and where defeat may bring death. But strangely, the news does not create panic. Instead, it settles quietly among us like a familiar shadow. Every man here knew this moment would eventually arrive, and until it does, the routine continues. Several days later, before the sun has even begun to rise, the gates of the gladiator school open once again. The streets of Rome are still quiet in the early morning darkness. A pale gray light spreads slowly across the sky as we begin the walk toward the amphitheater. The city feels different at this hour. During the day, Rome is a place of noise and movement, filled with merchants, carts, and crowds of citizens moving through its narrow streets. But before dawn, the city rests in a rare moment of calm. Our small procession moves steadily along the stone road. The guards walk beside us, their armor faintly clinking with each step. Some of the gladiators carry their helmets and shields in their arms, while others walk empty-handed, their equipment transported separately. The air carries the cool scent of morning. From somewhere nearby comes the faint smell of bread baking in an early baker's oven. A few lanterns still burn in the windows of nearby homes, casting soft light across the quiet streets. As we move closer to the center of the city, the massive structure of the amphitheater slowly rises into view. Even in the dim light of dawn, it is an impressive sight. The enormous ring of stone arches towers above the surrounding buildings, its walls stretching high into the pale sky. It stands like a monument to Roman power and spectacle. Thousands of people will soon fill its seats. But for now, the amphitheater waits in silence. The gates open slowly as we approach, allowing the fighters to enter through a narrow passage beneath the towering arches. Inside, the arena lies still and empty. The sand has been freshly raked, forming smooth patterns across the wide circular floor that it will not remain undisturbed for long. By midday, the amphitheater has transformed completely. What had been a quiet stone structure in the morning now vibrates with the energy of thousands of voices. The seats are filled with spectators from every part of Roman society. Wealthy nobles seated in the lower rows, merchants and craftsmen higher above, and the common people crowding the upper tiers. The sound of their voices rises like distant thunder from beneath the arena floor, where the gladiators wait in preparation rooms. The roar of the crowd echoes faintly through the corridors. The thick stone walls soften the noise, but its power is still unmistakable. Torches flicker along the underground hallways. The air smells of oil, leather, and metal. Some fighters sit quietly on wooden benches, their eyes closed as they conserve their strength. Others stand in small groups, adjusting their armor or speaking softly with their trainers. No one shouts, no one rushes. Even here, beneath the enormous noise of the amphitheater above, there is a strange calmness. We have all trained for this moment. Eventually, a horn sounds somewhere above us. The signal echoes down through the stone corridors. The games are beginning. Many hours later, long after the final cheers of the crowd have faded, the gladiators return once more to the school. The journey back through the city takes place under a darkening sky. The evening air feels cool against tired skin, and the streets of Rome have grown quieter again as most citizens return to their homes. Inside the barracks, the lanterns burn softly along the walls. Some of the men move slowly as they enter, their bodies weary from the day's events. Others sit quietly on their beds, reflecting on the fights they witnessed or participated in. A few carry fresh scars that will soon be treated by the physician. Others carry the quiet pride of victory. But regardless of the outcome, the routine of the school continues. Armor is carefully stored, weapons are cleaned, and eventually the fighters lie down upon their straw mattresses once again. I stretch out on my bed and stare briefly toward the small window above the barracks wall. Through the iron bars I can see the night sky. The same stars shine above Rome tonight as they did yesterday, and as they will tomorrow. Another day has passed, another day in the life of a gladiator. Slowly, the voices in the barracks fade. The lanterns grow dim, and the steady breathing of sleeping men fills the quiet room. Outside, the great amphitheater stands silent once more beneath the stars, and inside the stone walls of the gladiator school, the fighters rest, waiting for whatever tomorrow may bring. By the time the gladiators return to the training school, the sun has nearly disappeared beyond the rooftops of Rome. The sky above the city glows with the final warm colors of evening, slowly fading from gold to deep violet as night approaches. The walk back through the streets is quieter than the journey earlier in the day. The crowds that filled the amphitheater have mostly dispersed, returning to their homes and taverns while discussing the battles they witnessed. Some speak with excitement about victories. Others debate the skill of the fighters or argue about decisions made by the officials overseeing the games. But those conversations remain behind us as we move steadily through the dim streets. The gladiators walk together beneath the growing darkness, accompanied by the steady rhythm of sandals against stone. Armor clinks softly with each step, and the faint glow of oil lamps flickers in windows along the road. Eventually, the familiar walls of the ludus come into view. The large wooden gate opens slowly, allowing the fighters to pass inside once more. The courtyard appears much as it did that morning, though now the training ground lies quiet beneath the cool evening air. Torches burn along the stone walls, their gentle flames casting dancing shadows across the ground. Inside the barracks, the men begin settling into their usual routines. Some remove pieces of armor with tired hands, setting them carefully on wooden racks. Others sit silently for a moment before lying down on their beds. The long day has taken its toll. Even the strongest fighters feel the weight of exhaustion after the intensity of the arena. Yet despite the fatigue, a quiet sense of calm settles across the room. For tonight, the battles are finished. Later in the evening, the physician arrives to inspect the fighters. Aurelius carries his familiar wooden box of tools and herbs as he moves slowly from one man to another. His work is patient and careful, for even the smallest wound can become dangerous if left untreated. The barracks remains quiet while he works. Small oil lamps illuminate the room with a soft golden glow, and the scent of crushed herbs drifts faintly through the air as Aurelius prepares his remedies. One fighter sits patiently while the physician cleans a shallow cut along his shoulder. Another lies on his stomach while a bruise along his back is examined. The treatments are simple but effective. Bandages are wrapped carefully around injuries. Herbal pastes are applied to reduce swelling. Clean cloth is used to protect wounds from infection. When Aurelius reaches me, he studies a small scratch along my forearm that was earned during training earlier in the week. He nods slightly. "It will heal quickly," he says in his calm voice. I thank him quietly. In many ways, the physician is as important to the school as the trainers themselves. Without his care, few gladiators would remain healthy long enough to fight many battles. Eventually, his rounds are finished, and the room grows quiet once again. As night deepens over Rome, the barracks becomes a place of soft whispers and fading voices. Some of the men have already fallen asleep, their breathing slow and steady as they rest after the long day. Others remain awake for a while longer, sitting quietly on their beds or speaking in low tones with nearby companions. These quiet conversations often drift toward memories. Publius speaks about his years in the Roman army, recalling long marches through distant provinces and the endless discipline of military life. His voice carries a tone of calm nostalgia as he describes the rolling hills of Hispania and the cold winds along the northern frontier. Diodorus tells stories of the sea. Before becoming a gladiator, he had once worked as a sailor aboard merchant ships traveling between Greek ports and the cities of the eastern Mediterranean. He describes bright blue water stretching to the horizon and white sails catching the wind beneath the open sky. Listening to these stories, the barracks seems to expand beyond its stone walls. For a moment, the men are no longer gladiators resting after a day in the arena. They are travelers remembering distant places, sharing fragments of lives that existed long before they arrived here. Gradually, the conversations grow quieter one by one. The voices fade. Sleep begins to claim the room. The night inside the ludus is peaceful. Beyond the walls of the school, Rome continues its endless rhythm. Somewhere in the distance, a cart rolls slowly along a stone road. A dog barks briefly before falling silent again. But inside the barracks, the world feels stilled as I lie on my bed staring toward the small barred window above the wall. My thoughts drift toward a familiar dream shared by many gladiators. Freedom.it is a simple dream, symbolized by a small wooden sword known as the rudis. When a gladiator proves his skill and bravery through many victories, the magistrates may grant him this wooden blade as a sign that his service has ended. Few men ever receive it. Yet every gladiator imagines the moment, the day when the crowd cheers not for another battle, but for a fighter who has earned his release. That I picture the open road beyond the city gates, the quiet countryside stretching beneath the sun, perhaps even the distant hills where I once lived before coming to the ludus. These thoughts drift through my mind slowly as the lantern light flickers against the wall. Eventually, my eyes grow heavy. Sleep approaches gently. Long before dawn arrives, the barracks rests in complete silence. The lanterns have burned low, leaving only faint shadows dancing along the walls. The air inside the room feels cool and calm as the night deepens across the city. Outside, the great amphitheater stands empty beneath the stars. The sand of the arena lies smooth once more, its surface undisturbed after the excitement of the previous day's battles. The massive stone arches rise quietly against the dark sky, their presence a reminder that the spectacle will eventually return. But tonight, there is only stillness. Inside the gladiator school, the fighters sleep deeply, their bodies recovering from the strain of training and combat. The steady rhythm of breathing fills the room like a gentle tide. Another day will come soon. Another sunrise will bring fresh routines. Training in the courtyard, meals of barley and bread, quiet conversations among the men who share this unusual life. And perhaps, somewhere in the future, another walk toward the arena. For now, however, the world remains peaceful. The stars shine softly above Rome, and the gladiators rest within the quiet stone walls of the ludus, waiting for whatever tomorrow may bring. Before the sun rises over Rome, the city rests in a gentle stillness. The night air lingers cool against the stone buildings, and the faint glow of the final stars begins to fade slowly from the sky. Inside the barracks of the gladiator school, the quiet breathing of sleeping men fills the dim room. The oil lamps along the walls have nearly burned out, leaving only soft shadows across the stone floor. That I wake slowly, as I often do, before the guards arrive. For a moment, I remain still, listening to the calm silence of the room. These early moments of morning are among the most peaceful parts of the day. The arena feels far away now, and the routines of training have not yet begun. Across the room, a faint gray light begins to appear through the small barred window high on the wall. Dawn is coming again to Rome, and with it, another ordinary day in the life of a gladiator. By the time the guards open the barracks door, the first sounds of the city have begun to reach the training school. Distant footsteps echo faintly from the streets beyond the walls. Somewhere nearby, a cart creaks slowly along the road, its wooden wheels rolling over the uneven stones. The smell of fresh bread drifts faintly through the cool morning air as bakers begin their work. Rome awakens gradually, like a great living creature stirring from sleep. The gladiators step quietly into the courtyard as the pale sunlight begins to spread across the sky. The training posts stand waiting in their usual rows, and the ground beneath them still holds the coolness of the night. Some men stretch their arms slowly. Others stand silently for a moment, breathing in the fresh morning air. Every day begins this way, simple, quiet, predictable, and in a life filled with uncertainty, these small routines bring a certain comfort. Soon the servants bring out the morning meal. Large bowls of barley porridge are placed along the wooden tables, accompanied by baskets of rough bread and cups filled with watered wine. The food may appear simple to outsiders, but it provides the strength needed for long hours of training. Gladiators are sometimes called horderii, the barley men, because so much of our diet comes from this humble grain. The men sit together as they eat. Morning conversations remain quiet and unhurried. Some discuss the previous day's games, analyzing each movement of the fights they witnessed. Others simply enjoy the calm moment before the demands of training begin again. Above us, the rising sun begins to warm the courtyard walls. The day is starting once more. Training begins as it always does. The wooden practice swords are lifted from their racks, and the fighters take their positions before the training posts. The rhythm of practice soon fills the courtyard, which strikes wood. Sandals scrape against the dust. Breath flows steadily in and out. The drills repeat again and again, each movement carefully controlled. For the trainers, perfection lies not in speed, but in discipline. That a gladiator must learn patience as much as strength. Hours pass slowly in the warm sunlight as the fighters continue their exercises. Sweat forms across their shoulders, and dust rises softly from the ground beneath their feet. Yet the rhythm remains steady. Strike, step, guard, strike again. Eventually, the trainers call for a pause. The fighters step away from the posts, their arms heavy from the effort of repeated strikes. Water jars are brought into the courtyard, and the men gather in the shade to cool themselves. These quiet breaks often become moments of reflection. Some gladiators sit silently, their thoughts drifting toward distant homes or past lives. Others speak softly with friends, sharing simple jokes or observations about the morning's training. The breeze moves gently through the courtyard, carrying with it the distant sounds of Rome beyond the walls. For a brief moment, the world feels calm again. Later in the afternoon, when the heat of the day begins to fade, the gladiators gather in small groups within the barracks. It is during these quieter hours that stories are often shared. Publius once again speaks of his years as a soldier, describing the vast landscapes of the Roman Empire. Diodorus recounts memories of sailing across the open sea, watching the sunrise over distant islands. These stories travel far beyond the stone walls of the ludus. They remind the men that the world is larger than the arena, and perhaps someday, some of them may see it again as the sun begins to sink toward the horizon. The evening meal is served. The courtyard glows softly with warm golden light as the gladiators gather once more around the wooden tables. The food is similar to the morning meal, though sometimes vegetables or beans are added to the porridge. The men eat slowly, enjoying the final quiet moments of the day. Above them, the sky begins to shift into shades of orange and purple as the sun disappears beyond the distant hills. Night approaches. With darkness settling over Rome, the temperature begins to drop. The courtyard grows quiet again as the fighters return to the barracks. Torches flicker gently along the stone walls, casting warm light across the training ground, and a soft breeze moves through the open doorway, carrying the distant sounds of the city at night. For many gladiators, evening is the most peaceful time of day. The work is finished, the arena is far away, and sleep slowly approaches. Later that night, when the barracks has grown quiet, I rise briefly and step outside into the courtyard. The sky above Rome stretches wide and clear, filled with countless stars. The great amphitheater stands somewhere beyond the rooftops of the city, silent beneath the same sky. That it is strange to think that the same stars shine over every corner of the empire. From distant deserts to northern forests, travelers across the Roman world look up at the same night sky. Standing in the quiet courtyard, I allow the cool air to fill my lungs. Then, after a moment, I return to the barracks. Life inside the gladiator school follows a rhythm that rarely changes. Morning brings training, afternoon brings preparation, evening brings rest. Day after day, the routines continue beneath the watchful eyes of the trainers and the distant presence of the arena. Some gladiators will fight many times. Others will fight only once. But for all of them, the days inside the ludus pass in the same slow, steady rhythm. And as the lanterns fade and sleep once again fills the barracks, another quiet night settles over Rome. Tomorrow, when the sun rises again above the ancient city, the routine will begin once more.